Women's Rights Movement by Ivana Civic. Elements and background of the feminist movement. All throughout American history, women have had to fight for the same rights and opportunities as men. Similar to any human rights movement, it began with a group of oppressed people who were tired of having their rights taken away. The government's lack of protection laws against gender-based discrimination and violence unified women to use their voices to make a change. There have been 4 waves of feminism, the 4th taking place in modern society. The first wave's main goal was to grant the women the right to vote. The second wave fought against systemic sexism. The third wave brought the problems of unpunished sexual assault cases to light, and the 4th wave is currently focusing on inclusive female empowerment. First wave. The first wave of feminism in the United States of America began in 1848 with the Seneca Falls Convention. Discussions about the social, civil, and religious condition and rights of women led to the passing of 12 resolutions calling for equal rights. This included the right to vote for women, eventually granted in 1920. Although this first wave was majorly influenced by women of color, it was eventually established as a movement solely for white women. The 15th Amendment's passing greatly spurred this movement because white women felt it was unjust that former slaves were given the right to vote before they were. Reproductive rights was another issue in question during the first wave. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, opened the first birth control clinic in America at this time. Despite its blatant racist views, the first wave greatly aided in the fight for women's rights by advocating for equal opportunities in education, jobs, and property ownership. Second wave. The second wave of feminism began in 1963 with Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique, a book describing the systemic sexism and gender roles that govern our world. Betty believed that if women were unhappy being housewives, there was nothing wrong with them, but rather with the society that refused to allow them to accomplish other things. This idea encouraged many women to become angry with society and take action for social equality. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 outlawed any discrimination by paying a woman less than a man in the same profession, and many Supreme Court cases went in favor of allowing women access to birth control. Title IX gave women the right to educational equality, and Roe v. Wade guaranteed reproductive freedom to women in 1973. The second wave raised awareness for domestic abuse and worked to pass laws protecting women from sexual harassment in the workplace. Although the second wave was much more racially inclusive, women of color had separate needs from white women that were not addressed as prominently as the white women's needs were. Third wave. The third wave began in 1991 with the Anita Hill case, in which Anita Hill said she had been sexually harassed by Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas. After her testimony, other powerful men found themselves with multiple sexual assault allegations. Thomas ended up in the Supreme Court anyways, but this case brought up a conversation about the overrepresentation of men in national leadership roles. In 1992, 24 women were appointed to the House of Representatives and 3 to the Senate. The fight for trans rights also became a fundamental part of intersectional feminism. The third wave's main goals were to fight against sexual harassment, increase the number of women in positions of power, and to rename the word feminine as something powerful and threatening rather than weak or timid. Fourth wave, the most recent. The fourth wave's beginning is marked as the beginning of the Me Too movement that caught momentum in 2012. Tarana Burke, who first started the movement in 2006, spoke about the changes that needed to happen in order to support victims and prevent sexual assault cases. She wants to particularly focus on helping women of color, and primarily her goal is for survivors to help other survivors, and of course to put an end to sexual violence. Too many times, survivors are ridiculed for wearing certain clothing or acting a certain way when they were assaulted. Fourth wave campaigns are calling out this rape culture and demanding that it not be ignored any longer. This fourth wave feminism is by far the most inclusive, as it is queer, sex positive, trans inclusive, body positive, and digitally driven. Powerful men are starting to be held accountable for their actions, and the system that allows predators to target women without proper punishment is beginning to change. Similarities to past historical events. In many historical movements, and the most recent women's rights movement, the people were put under an abusive authority that refused to treat them as equals. After years of dealing with this oppression, they spoke out and made a difference for future generations. The modern women's rights movement is currently trying to pass new laws that protect women from pay discrimination and unpunished sexual assault cases. Similarly to past historical events, feminists are starting with political equality and will eventually accomplish social equality for all women. How will this fourth wave end? Although I don't think that the fourth wave of the feminist movement will accomplish social and political equality for women, I do think that they will make dramatic improvements and change the way many people view minority groups. It's naive to think that feminists can change everybody's minds, completely disposing of gender-based crimes and systemic sexism. Unfortunately, there will always be those who want to suppress others, but I do believe that the feminist movement has already made substantial changes for women and will only continue to better our lives.